here's the movement lesson for the bench press. Now, with our bench press, we're going to go through the setup first and then look at some of the technical keys. But when we bench, we want to use the concept of full body tension. And what I mean by that is when I'm lying on the bench and I'm pushing the bar up, I want to make sure that my feet are actively digging into the floor. And when I do that, I'm actually driving force. I'm creating tension that's going to help me push and lift with more weight. So my feet are dug into the floor, my leg muscles are not relaxed, but they're engaged. Glutes are engaged. And another important thing with full body tension is I want to get really proficient at setting my shoulders as I bring the bar down and up. A lot of times when people bench press, their shoulders won't be packed together, they won't be set. And when that happens it looks more like this position. So the ball comes out of the socket, there's no real engagement in my back muscles, and a couple things can happen out of that. One is when the ball comes out of the socket with weight coming down, that can aggravate our shoulders, and we want to avoid any shoulder pain, of course, when we bench press. And the second thing is when we don't set our shoulders, our back muscles are not engaged, and when they're not engaged, we're not really stable to push the bar away from us. So what we need to get really solid at is dig our feet in, get our legs tight, glutes, set our shoulders, and really practice it, that we can bring our arms into this position and then push them away with always keeping our shoulder blades set. And for a lot of people that's very difficult, and it's really important to practice that actually without the bar. There's different drills that we can do to practice that. So there's our setup position. Now in terms of how it looks, when I'm lying on the bench, personal preference, you can have your feet wider. We don't want to have our feet close together because that's really unstable, but you can have them somewhere around this. You can have your foot flat, or you can have the balls of your feet, unless you're in a powerlifting meet and they have different rules and sanctions on how your foot position is. If you're just training the bench press as part of your strength and conditioning, play around with whatever foot position is comfortable for you. The biggest thing is we want to find something that's comfortable, that we're wide enough, that we're stable, and you can actively dig your feet into the ground. We never want our feet coming off the floor when we're benching. So setup wise, I'm going to be dug in here. Shoulders are set, legs, glutes are engaged, and the other thing is I'm going to arch my back. So it's important that with a lot of our core exercise, we want to stay neutral and make sure that we're not curving our back. Whenever we bench press, we want to make sure that we have more curve in our back. And a couple reasons for that. When I curve my back more or arch it, that's going to help me set my shoulders more. So that's an important thing. The second thing is when I curve my back, I'm still keeping my core tight, but that's going to shorten the bar path a bit as well. So when the bar comes down and I have my back arched a bit, it's less of a bar path. Okay? If I have a really flat back, it's hard for me to set my shoulders, and when I come down, that bar is going to come down quite far, and I'm going to have the tendency to round my shoulders as I'm benching at the very bottom of the lift. We want to avoid this position, but want to be more here. So real simple, we want to arch our back, set our shoulders, and that's going to keep our shoulders and everything in the right position. So from here, once we're in that setup, I want to make sure that I'm lying down on the bench properly. So when we come under the bar, I'm going to roll the bar to the edge of the J-cups. So instead of being back towards the post, I roll it to the edge of the J-cups, and when it's at the edge of the J-cups, or the front I should say, my eyes are going to be pretty much under the bar. When I set up with my eyes under the bar, I'm going to be far enough away from the rack, so when we lift the weights, it's not going to be banging off the post or the J-cups at all. We don't want to be touching the rack when we're benching. So I got my foot position, feet are dug in, full body tension, back is arched, shoulders are set. Now from here, when I roll it, I'm going to make sure my hands are balanced. Okay? And then when I lift it, I'm going to lift off at 2 breaths. So instead of me getting a really good setup and just taking a breath in, unracking and going down, what I'm going to get in the habit of doing is unrack the bar with 2 breaths. And the reason I want to do that is if I simply take a breath in, unrack the bar and go down, the chances are the bar is going to be unstable as I come down with it. Okay? We want to make sure when we first lower the bar is really stable and we're under control with the bar. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to demo it out, get tight, shoulders set, all those important things. I roll the bar to the edge of the J-cups, and I take 1 big breath in, and I unrack the bar. Now I'm just going to set the bar and hold that top position for a second or so. When I'm there, the bar is going to be on top of my sternum. And by taking that one breath, set the bar, then I take a second breath, I come down, I touch my sternum, and exhale up. And the purpose of taking 2 breaths is that gives us another second at the very top to make sure the bar is not moving. So we unrack it, set it, take another breath in, and we got a nice controlled bar path as we go up and down. As we go down, real important, drive through our feet, full body tension, shoulder blades are set, back is arched. We want to take a bullseye right about where our sternum is. So my upper abs finish around here, and the bottom of my sternum is right about here. So there's our bullseye. Now it's really important that when we come down, unless you have like a pre-existing shoulder injury or anything like that, we want to touch your sternum with every single rep. We don't want to bounce the bar off our chest. We don't want to stop an inch short. When we're doing a regular type of bench press, we want to make sure we touch it lightly, then come back up. And that way we know that we're getting that full range of motion with everything we're doing. So breathe in on the way down, exhale up, straight bar path, and keep the full body tight. So here's what a couple of good reps look like. Shoulders set, hands are tight, big breath. Second big breath. And then rack. So with that, you notice that when I finished my rep at the very end, every single time at the very top, my arms were locked out. When we do that, we just finish the rep the way we should. At the very end of your set, on your last rep, if the weight is very difficult, we still want to fight with it, lock out our arms, and then rack it. Sometimes what can happen is when the last rep gets more challenging, we'll struggle to get it up, and then all of a sudden we won't finish our lockout to here, we'll just kind of rack it. So it's always a good habit, touch our sternum, lock our arms out, get that full range of motion, then we'll rack it. So overall, those are some important keys with the bench. We want to make sure that your feet are your personal preference from where they are, but we don't want them close. We want them a little bit wider. We got to dig our feet into the floor actively. We got to engage our legs and our glutes. We want to make sure we don't flatten our back, but we curve it slightly. We got to make sure that we practice at getting really proficient at setting our shoulders on the way down and up. And that way our back muscles are always engaged. And when we unrack the bar, make sure our eyes are under the bar, roll the bar to the edge of the J-cups. We take those 2 breaths. Breath 1, unset it, so it's on top of the sternum. Breath 2, bring it down, touch our sternum, exhale up, and finish with a lockout. And you'll notice that foot position is a personal preference. Hand position also is dictated by obviously the size of the individual. We want to make sure though that when we do grab the bar, it's really easy to grab it without being perfectly balanced with the bar. So we can use our rings as a marker. And a good rule of thumb is where do we put our hands? They're going to be about 1 thumb away from our shoulders. So we want to avoid shoulder width unless we're doing a close grip bench press. We want to avoid being ultra wide because that's just our chest working mainly, and it's harder on our shoulders generally. But if we can find this position right here, we come down to about a 45-degree angle. Then we use our chest, our shoulders, and our triceps equally, and it really helps us to have good form and kind of maximize our effort and our push. So those are some important keys with the bench press. Really important, again, master those fundamentals, and we can load from there.